This morning, our second reading comes from the book of Esther. Hear these words of God. Mordecai told Hathach all that had happened to him and the exact sum of money that Haman had promised to pay into the king's treasuries for the destruction of the Jews. Mordecai also gave him a copy of the written decree issued in Susa for their destruction, that he might show it to Esther, explain it to her, and charge her to go to the king and make supplication to him and entreat him for her people. Then Esther said in reply to Mordecai, "Go, gather all the Jews to be found in Susa, and hold a fast on my behalf, and neither eat nor drink for 3 days, night or day. I and my maids will also fast as you do. After that I will go to the king, though it is against the law, and if I perish, I perish." Mordecai then went away and did everything as Esther had ordered him. On the third day, Esther put on her royal robes and stood in the inner court of the king's palace. As soon as the king saw Queen Esther standing in the court, she won his favor, and he held out to her the golden scepter that was in his hand. Then Esther approached and touched the top of the scepter. On the second day, as they were drinking wine, the king again said to Esther, "What is your petition, Queen Esther? It shall be granted. And what is your request? Even to the half of my kingdom it shall be fulfilled." Then Queen Esther answered, "If I have won your favor, O king, and if it pleases the king, let my life be given me. That is my petition. And the lives of my people, that is my request. For we have been sold, I and my people, to be destroyed, to be killed, to be annihilated. If we had been sold merely as slaves, men and women, I would have held my peace, but no enemy can compensate for this damage to the king." Then King Ahasuerus said to Queen Esther, "Who is he and where is he who has presumed to do this?" Esther said, "A foe and enemy, this wicked Haman." Then Haman was terrified before the king and the queen. Then Harbona, one of the eunuchs and attendants on the king, said, "Look, the very gallows that Haman has prepared for Mordecai, whose word saved the king, stands at Haman's house, 50 cubits high." And the king said, "Hang him on that." So they hanged Haman on the gallows that he had prepared for Mordecai. Then the anger of the king abated. This is the word of our Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Esther is a beautiful young woman living in a man's world. She is the parentless child of an exiled people living in a distant colony of a shaken empire, when all of a sudden she is plucked away to become a fickle ruler's plaything and trophy. If anyone ever tries to tell you that the Bible is boring, you can just tell them to take a look at the soap opera contained in the book of Esther. But this story is also an important story of courage, of wisdom, and a faithful community. Step with me for a few moments into Esther's shoes. You have no parents and have been taken in and raised by your uncle Mordecai, or maybe he's your cousin. You're not really sure, but it doesn't matter anyway. He is family, and he cares for you. The ruler of the nation to which you and your people, the Hebrews, have been exiled, has just gotten rid of his wife in a fit of rage. Queen Vashti refused to appear before the king and his council on day 7 of a week-long drinking and feasting binge. The only reason he was summoning her was to ogle her for her beauty with all the other people there. And it sounds like she had had enough. I can't imagine, can you? Now that the king has cooled off, he is looking for a new wife. your uncle, Mordecai, suggests you try out for the position. You agree because surely Mordecai has your best interests at heart. You arrive at the king's palace and are put through an entire year of cosmetic treatments in order to be as beautiful as absolutely possible for the king. Okay, I'm not sure I would hate that part. However, during this year, you are also put through training and education to learn the rules and the customs of this fickle king's culture. You give up your entire identity as a Jewish woman, as well as your life and your body, to assimilate to the culture of this king who seems to care about nothing and nobody more than he cares about himself. At the end of it all, you take so well to the training, and you are so beautiful and charming that you win this terrible lottery. The king chooses you to be his new queen. You feel butterflies of excitement that you will be queen, coupled with fear that you will do something wrong and end up like the last queen. Luckily, you quickly receive an opportunity to save the king's life when your uncle overhears some servants plotting to kill him and tells you. Your husband is grateful for your help, and you gain even more favor with him. However, soon after this, you learn that your husband's highest appointed official has a plan to kill all people of your kind, and he has convinced your husband to participate by way of decree. Your husband and his official are both ignorant of the fact that you are part of this people, that your husband would indeed be killing you. What do you do? How do you respond? Knowing that what happened to the king's wife who defied him before you were ever even a figment of his story, how do you feel? Helpless? Fearful? Worse yet, hopeless? I work in hospice. I am a chaplain. I have felt called to this work since I was in high school, although I fought God tooth and nail at first. I mean, what kind of high school senior feels and hears the call to hospice chaplain and says, okay, I'll go sit with people who have been told they're dying? Groovy. No. I held off on discerning my call to hospice chaplaincy until I was late into my 20s, doing my chaplain residency at a hospital. It was then that I realized that the patients I felt most drawn to sit with were those who were close to dying. After finishing my chaplain residency, I was fortunate to find a position with a local hospice in the same city that I was living in. During orientation to this job, one of my chaplain colleagues, who was significantly older than me, even pressed me about it. Why are you doing this? Don't you think that you'll be depressed? You're so young. I feel called. That is the only explanation. But I think this is the only explanation for any meaningful work we do, really. Even, or maybe especially, if it is work to which we at first really do not want to be going or doing. Esther is called to become queen and to do God's work in the role of queen. Why else would she give up her entire life, her body, her identity, for a year-long preparation process and an audition that could ruin her life if she does not make the cut? I've used that term a couple times now, audition or try out. I use the term to refer to the way in which Esther becomes the king's wife. To be clear, I do not regard marriage as something we flippantly commit to at all. I do, however, know that this particular king is treating marriage in that way. It is obvious by how quickly he discards his first wife and by how he chooses Esther to be his new wife after only one sleepless night with her. This is for Esther an audition, and if she does not get the part of wife, she will become an understudy. A backup wife. She will be merely a concubine. Choice, opportunity, power. These are things that Esther is not accustomed to having. It is no wonder that Esther's first response to her uncle about the plot to kill her people is, "I cannot do this. There is nothing I can do to help my people." When fear is involved, many other emotions are often close by. Helplessness, anger, sadness. Fear can be a strong fuel. And if it's utilized properly, it can be a very effective fuel to work for good. While Esther does not have any choice about becoming the king's wife, she does have a choice now that she is queen. She can allow her fear to paralyze her into doing nothing, or she can allow her fear to give her the strength, the courage to act, to be brave. The way Esther responds to her newfound power is a healthy part of being human. She gives herself the opportunity to reflect and take stock, to fast and pray, to call upon the guidance and support of her faith community and of God in using this power for good. Especially for a person who has always been powerless, our first response is often to step back and say, "No, I cannot do this. No way." Frankly, I think people who are accustomed to having power could learn something from this response. Power is an important tool, and it is a tool we have to respect, a tool we have to hone, a tool we have to learn to use and to refine. "No, I cannot do this" soon becomes, "Okay, I will fast and pray about this, and I need your help. I need your support." For someone who has never been in power, Esther jumps to such a healthy response. I wish I could say I always have such a healthy, well-considered response, but I do not. I often jump to conclusions and make quick decisions without really considering all the possibilities and all the consequences of these decisions. Esther gives her fear some time, some space to speak to her. Esther gives her fear the strength to guide her into a response that may be able to help her save her and her people. She gives her fear the room to take a deep breath. In taking that deep breath, she gives her fear the power to guide her, to give voice to self-less power, to squash selfish power. And this wise queen does not act alone. As I read this story, my mind continues to jump back to her response to her uncle Mordecai. "Go, gather all the Jews to be found, hold a fast on my behalf. Neither eat nor drink for 3 days, night or day. I and my maids will do the same. After that, I will go to the king, though it is against the law, and if I die, I die." For such a young and experienced queen, she is wise enough to know she needs to draw strength from her people, from her faith community, from her cloud of witnesses, from God. May we all have the wisdom to turn to our faith community, to our cloud of witnesses in times of fear and in times of need. For it is then that we are met with the face of God, a face of love and support, strength and guidance, a face that urges us onward with courage and with grace. Amen.